I am Chelsea.
And I'm Chris.
And we're from Love My Brit. And we're here today to talk about
finding a house in the UK.
And this isn't just really for anyone, it's for anyone that is settled in the UK already or have right to be living in the UK, whether that's through a pre-approved visa or you are a British citizen, descendant through ancestry or whatnot. But we thought we would share our experiences with it.
Yep, we've ourselves recently been looking at moving to a new city and therefore a new house as well, and these are some of the things that we've picked up on which are a little different to the US and other countries as well, we assume.
Yeah. So we're just going to kind of discuss some of the differences that we've seen and hope that this helps you in finding your house or someone that you know. So make sure to share the video if you know people moving around in the UK and if they need some assistance. So the first thing we wanted to talk about was accommodation sites, where you can find a place to rent.
Right. So in the UK there are 3 major websites where you can look to find accommodation.
And it's not just limited to these places, but these are just the 3 big ones.
Yeah. So these are Zoopla, Rightmove, and Gumtree. And quite often you'll find houses or apartments that are listed on multiple sites.
Right. So you'll find the same house available throughout all 3 of these search engines. So be wary of that, which means obviously for the homeowner or the agency that's showing these places that they're getting more views on it. So it's just a good tactic that they have. But I guess for you in the long run, that might be a little bit more competition when it comes to viewing the house.
Yeah.
So, what's your favorite search engine to use?
I personally like to use Zoopla because it seems to have the widest range of houses, but it also has the best filtering options. So you can filter by whether it allows pets or not, whether it has a garden. And it's worth bearing in mind that the agencies that put houses on there aren't always perfect at filling this information out.
Yeah.
So it's not always 100% accurate. And if you aren't sure, usually I like to go to the agency's website because it will always be listed on the agency's website as well. Go to their website and check the original information there.
Yeah. One thing we've learned the hard way is that these houses that are up for rent or flats, that they don't necessarily come on a first come, first served basis. So while it might have been a new post and you were the first one to book a viewing with that house, that even though your application gets in before everyone else, doesn't mean that they're only going to review your application. Some agencies like to leave it open and available for longer.
And wait until they have 2 or 3 applications and give them all to the landlord, and then the landlord will choose which one they want to go with. It's not the case with all of them. A small minority, I would say, but it does exist.
Yeah, and this has happened to us before we found this place.
Yeah.
You were the first one to view it and stick an application in for it, but they wanted to leave it open and available for other people to apply, and inevitably we were not accepted. I don't know if it's because we had a pet and the other couple didn't, but yeah, it kind of sucked. So just be mindful that even though you might get your application in first or right away, that it doesn't necessarily mean that the house is guaranteed yours, regardless if your specs all add up really well.
Yeah.
Kind of going back to what you're saying about the search listings and your little options that you could do in the advanced searches. Pet friendly. We've come across that pet friendly isn't necessarily the easiest accommodation to come by. A lot of people will find that pet friendly is just not really listed.
Yeah. It won't list pet friendly or not pet friendly, it just won't make any mention of pets at all.
Well, we can't say they won't at all because sometimes there have been some, but the majority do not mention whether or not they accept pets. And if they do, it's a we don't accept pets option. So even though a house that you're looking at on one of these websites doesn't state whether or not they accept a pet, don't let that be the last time that you consider it. Do phone the agency or the homeowner, depending on who's advertising this, and ask whether or not it's a pet-friendly accommodation and if they're willing to accept a pet. That's worked out for us a little bit here.
Yeah.
For about the 50 houses that we looked over through the website, we probably had about 3 that were pet friendly. So you just gotta keep trying. Don't give up. But pet friendly is a little bit harder to find. One thing that I've commonly found searching for our new house was this DSS thing. How do you know if DSS applies to you or not?
DSS is a shorthand term for unemployment benefit, essentially.
Okay.
So a lot of the listings you'll see will say something like, no DSS, no pets, no students. Those are kind of the 3 that a lot of people like to tick off. We don't accept these 3 types of applicants. So if you are on a visa, you won't be classed as DSS because you won't have any entitlement to any benefits over here.
Not allowed.
Right. But if you're not applying with somebody else, a partner or a friend or somebody, you will still be classed as unemployed if you are unemployed, and they will most likely not accept you for that reason as well. So some say no DSS, some say employed applicants only. They basically mean the same thing.
Okay. One thing I've noticed is that there's a lot more furnished accommodation or partially furnished accommodation here in the UK. I'm used to the majority being unfurnished. So you go to a viewing and you're looking around a place and it's completely empty. There's no furniture present. It's all your furniture comes in only. But some accommodation here has pre-furnished home for you.
Yeah. Either pre-furnished or it'll say part furnished, which usually means they might have like a bed and a sofa for you. And then the step down from that is white goods included. And that's a term that I know you aren't familiar with.
I didn't recognize it at all.
So white goods included means that you get your kitchen appliances with the place. White goods is a broad term for kind of dishwasher, washing machine, fridge, freezer. And it might not include all of those, so when you're looking around the house which says white goods included, be sure to have a look and see what they do have there. But it is just a broad term for large kitchen appliances.
I find that interesting. In America, on house listings, it's very common that someone would list whether or not there's a washer or dryer on site. So it would have the acronym W/D, so washer dryer, which meant that it was available. Or washer dryer hookups, meaning they don't have the washer dryer and that they have the ability for you to put one in of your own, but they themselves are not providing that to you. But I don't think in all of the homes I've ever rented in the US that white goods wasn't there. I mean, oven, dishwasher, if a dishwasher was there, fridge, those were all included, but a microwave and washer dryer were usually like the things that you had to provide on your own. So this concept of you might be renting like this house. This house didn't have a fridge or a washer dryer when he came in, and so you had to buy that. So for me, that's just kind of like mind blowing. So something to know is white goods. Look up for white goods if you don't have these appliances. Make sure the home you're renting or the flat you're looking at does specify they've got the white goods. That sounds really bad, but the white goods are good. So let's talk about some very situational things, guarantors or co-signers.
Right, so this is when you found a property and you're looking at it and you want to apply for this property. This is when you're coming into the realm of co-signers and guarantors.
Well, guarantor or co-signer comes in because you don't financially make enough money to, in the agent's mind, to cover rent if an emergency happened. Like, right, you got laid off from work or you don't have enough rental history. And so this is someone who is going to make good on the fact that you have rent and deposits established in this home, and that if you do damage, that they're going to be legally responsible for you if you can't pay or you did mess up the house a bit when you moved out. So what I'm used to hearing is co-signers. So guarantor is a new word for me, but the concept of it is all still very much so the same. I thought we might need a guarantor at this new place that we're renting, but with your income, we didn't need that. But also, if we weren't married, I think I would have been required to have a guarantor, regardless of what
Yeah.
your income is, because we're
As a married couple,
Yeah.
we're treated as one
one
applicant.
person. Yeah.
Whereas if we were just dating, we'd most likely be treated as two people, and therefore, because your income wouldn't be as high, you might need a guarantor.
Right, so I do think that we had the benefit here that we were married. So for those of you who aren't, do be prepared that you might be required to have a guarantor. And I don't know specifically if a guarantor has to be from the UK, but I would assume they should be. So if you're from another country, there are websites available where you can pay someone to be your guarantor. I have seen that available. Yeah, well, I mean, if you're from another country, what are you supposed to do? So yeah, I mean, do look up these websites. They do exist. Another thing, references.
Yes.
You're going to need a reference for your work history as well as your living history. So even though I didn't really think mine would be considered much because it's from the US, I still have it, and I'm still going to acknowledge that, and I did. I listed my previous home stayed in the US as well as my work, but that depends on whether or not the agency wants to contact outside of the UK to read into what you've listed. But
And again, we were fortunate in our situation that because we're treated as one applicant, they went off my previous rental history and my previous work history.
yes,
But
not all agencies will do that.
No. But if you are not married, if you are applying on your own or with a boyfriend or girlfriend, then do be prepared that you might be asked for that, even if it isn't necessarily from the country.
Yeah, and the same goes for credit checks. I was told specifically that my credit score from America would not count towards this because they didn't want to check up on that. They only wanted to use his. But I do know of other, like, women from America specifically who have had their agencies contact the US for a credit score. So just be mindful that depending on who you're renting through, that they may or may not do these reference checks on you regardless of where you come from. In our case, not, but it can happen. So very situational: guarantor, credit checks, and references.
Yeah.
Last one was inventory.
Right, so this is when you've accepted a house and you're moving in. You'll be asked to fill out what's known as an inventory sheet. And is this something you have in the US too?
Yes. Yeah. So having the ability to go through the property and inspect any kind of previous damage that is already there upon move-in, so that you are basically claiming that you have no responsibility to this, and it's written on paper, documented, so that they legally acknowledge the same findings as well.
Right, and then when you come to move out of that house, if they will go through and check the house when you leave, and if they find anything new that wasn't listed on your inventory, any new damage, then they'll most likely charge you for that because it happened during the time you stayed there.
Yeah.
So it's important to note down everything you do find so that you're not charged for something which wasn't your fault.
And I'm used to having this sheet for about a week of time and just taking my time going through it, because not everything's going to be visible as far as what damage goes. You might go to open a door and the doorknob falls off, so that's completely different. But I know you personally have experienced where an agent walked you around.
Right,
and
so
went through it with you.
on the day I signed the lease, the agent walked around with me as I was doing it. And then I had to give it back to him at the end of that, and I had maybe 20 minutes to do the entire thing.
Yeah, so be mindful that if someone is there going through this with you and they're expecting you to turn it in that day, you really should take your time going through this, because this is you making sure that you're not responsible for pre-existing damage. So take your time, regardless if it's stressing out the agent. That's, their job is to just ensure that you move in with fairness, and taking your time going through and make sure the damage that pre-exists is written on this paperwork adds up, that you just go for it and just disregard how that person's feeling. But if you have the luxury of holding on to this for a period of time, they tell you you've got 5 business days or to the end of the week, do maximize on that time and investigate thoroughly throughout every single room, every nook and cranny, and write down everything that you see. So all in all, that was our main list of things that we wanted to mention about finding a house in the UK. If you have any kind of thoughts on here that contradict what we've mentioned or completely different experiences, do mention it in the comments below. Like this video if you thought that this was interesting, and feel free to subscribe to continue to watch us talk about our life in the UK, expat series, and visa related posts. Bye!